We are a digital consulting firm in the B2B SaaS space. So we work on implementing digital transformation for companies. So whether it's they need a new CMS platform, they need to change their digital experience, whether they're implementing e-commerce or design for the front end for their user experience. So we're there to define strategy and project plan with them, but then also do the research that's behind it in terms of the front end, but then also do that implementation work.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Jenn Daugherty. She's the head of marketing at TMG. Jen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you. So Jen, why don't you start and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So Jenn Daugherty, as Kelsey said, I am working with TMG. I live in Chicago. I've been here, too long, some would say. But I started working in marketing probably 15 or so years. I've always been in this B2B SaaS space as in a consulting agency. I dabbled a couple of years. I went out and I ventured into B2C and some other kind of startup markets. But this has been my home and B2B consulting for digital firms. And so, yeah, I've worked my way up. I've kind of done everything from when you're at a small startup, like you have to, and then have worked to take on, content marketing and content strategy. And then now at TMG, I'm in this overarching role, kind of devising infrastructure and building marketing from the ground up.
I love that. Certainly marketing is near and dear to my heart as well. So it sounds like you've had an interesting path getting you to TMG. Tell me a little bit more about what TMG does.
Sure. Yeah. So we are a digital consulting firm in the B2B, SaaS space. So we work on implementing digital transformation for companies. So whether it's they need a new CMS platform, they need to change their digital experience, whether they're implementing e-commerce or design for the front end for their user experience. So we're there to define strategy and project plan with them, but then also do the research that's behind it in terms of, the front end, but then also do that implementation work. So we were founded by solutions architects that were really experts in e-commerce. And so that's where a lot of our core competency is. But then, as we've grown, we've brought amazing people in and we have really developed into a full service agency.
That's fantastic. And that was going to be one of my next questions, kind of talking about the different industries that you work in. So it sounds like, there was kind of an emphasis on that e-commerce, or commerce rather, and it's kind of moved now into kind of all different industries and verticals. Did I hear that right?
So yeah, that's a fair assessment. We still do a lot of work with B2B. Manufacturing is a big one for us. Also, some healthcare, some life sciences companies, but we really, so many markets, there's so many different areas to kind of, everyone needs a digital experience these days. So yeah, we work across the board, but those are kind of our key verticals. And we work with mid-sized to enterprise companies as well.
Okay, fantastic. Good to know. And, when we're talking about TMG being a full service digital consulting company, talk to me a little bit more, about the different services. I know you mentioned kind of, that digital experience, digital transformation. Talk to me a little bit more about the different services specifically.
Sure. So I'd say our key pillars are e-commerce, user experience and design, customer experience, and then what we call digital transformation, which really for us is more on the strategy and internal processes that are necessary to implement some of these changes. So obviously e-commerce is self-explanatory, but in B2B, it's not just, buy socks from our website. It's we need a portal, we have dealers, we have specific pricing scenarios for different companies. So there's marketplaces that companies are implementing. So it's a little bit more complex. And then, yeah, user experience, everyone needs that. It's interesting in B2B because the buyer is not always or not usually the end user. So there's that divide where we need to navigate and create a solution that with someone else in mind. So understanding what the business wants, but then also how that end user is going to ideally benefit the most.
Yeah. And I want to circle back to TMG in a minute, but what something you said really piqued my interest, talking about being in the B2B space, but still pulling in that B2C experience. How have you worked to do that at TMG?
Yeah, it's been interesting. The last several years has definitely seen like a more of a desire. I think the pandemic has definitely brought that to the forefront because everyone is a consumer in their private life. And then if you're in your work life and you're in this site that is behind the times, really frustrating to use, you don't have a lot of visibility into it, just customers have demanded more. So that's kind of pushed it to the forefront. What we've done is, again, like relying on our research, the great UX teams that we have that understand both sides of that equation and how to bring it in a way that works for a company, how they can work through it on the back end with if there is legacy technology that they need to maintain and just kind of do some iterative upgrades. And then also, how you can keep that momentum going over the course of years instead of just like, well, we did this one upgrade, or maybe up to current or a couple years behind, and then we're going to let it sit for another 5 years. So bringing that in, demonstrating our knowledge in the space and how those things, how we can bring in, segmented things into a company is kind of, how we've been moving that needle.
That's fantastic. And, talking about that, pulling in those segmented different items, and you mentioned before those 4 pillars, kind of that TMG focuses on. Do you think that those are some of the ways that TMG is really able to stand out from its competition? And if you want to elaborate on other ones, be my guest.
Sure. I think those pillars are definitely, common pillars. I think we do differentiate ourselves in a couple different ways. Obviously, we have a lot of e-commerce expertise. That's something that we do hang our hat on, that we're well-versed in a lot of different platforms. But I think another way is that we're sticky with our clients. We don't come in just to do project work and leave. We have our average relationship with clients is 5 years. So so we like to get in, we like to, understand where the business is going, create a roadmap, devise that strategy, and then be there to implement it because things are going to come up. Things always come up that you didn't expect or you didn't plan for, and you realize we actually need that. So I think we show our value really early, and then we just, continue to grow with the client that we're partnering with, which has been really great. Another way I think we do, this comes up sometimes, we're also agile. So we do like strict agile methodology, which delivers results, I think, quicker. And, we've seen a lot of success with that because we're doing iterative development. So you have an MVP, you have something, instead of waiting a year for a site to go live, you do have, this kernel, this MVP in the beginning that we can then, iterate on and add features to. And so you're not just like, I'm spending all of this money and, not seeing any return. So I think in moving clients to agile and like bringing them along in that process and teaching them, we have a lot of certified like Scrum Masters. And so who are also able to instill that. So even, should we leave that client, they can also bring that methodology into their other projects and like see more results.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. Agile, certainly being sticky. I love that word and that terminology. I'm going to steal that. I think that's great. And, having a 5-year kind of, average relationship, that's, certainly profound for being able to say in the commerce space that you guys are in. I think that's fantastic. So, I'm curious to pick your brain a little bit, Jenn, kind of talking about common misconceptions. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I imagine not only kind of in the B2B marketing space, but also in that digital, industry that you guys are in. Talk to me a little bit. Is there any common misconceptions that you hear often that you would want to kind of shine some truth on?
Sure. I guess I'll tackle the like consulting one first. I think sometimes when I hear, or even when I'm saying like we're consultants, you visualize that scene in Office Space with like the Bob and Bob, like the two guys. And it's like, what would you say you do here? But yeah, that's obviously not what we do. We're delivering some real value and results. But yeah, I think people don't understand what a digital consulting firm is. And it's really, it's technical and it's digital. I think that word is used often, but it's really like defining your digital experience across platforms for your customers. So if you think about, Nike having a website and you can buy things there, and they have, I'm sure social media that tracks through to their, their systems, and they have email marketing, and they have all these images, right, that got on their website, but are also all in their promotion. Like, that's digital asset management. So all of those things are linked. And their expertise is whatever Nike builds, right? And then our expertise is pulling those things together and creating these, technical back-end applications and integrations to serve those things up to your clients in a really seamless, wonderful way, but then also making sure that the business side has tracking and understanding of how those things work together and ease for that back end.
I think that's great. And why do you think that's so important for people to understand?
Well, I think it brings it into tangible terms. I think, you hear, oh, consultants, like, and a lot of people don't have a strict meaning, or they have a different idea than what this actually is. So technology consulting is very different than, anything else, I would say.
No, I completely agree. Well, Jenn, I think this has been a terrific conversation. As we start to wrap up, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, whether it be advice, more information about kind of the digital consulting firm, more information about TMG, anything you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I would say, if this is something that you're interested with or struggling with, I being out in the marketplace and talking to this different, B2B companies, there's a great divide of people who are, really technologically advanced and people who are kind of, lagging behind, want to get up to date. I think, jumping in, obviously doing some research and like finding someone, if you don't have the internal, skill set to devise this type of like roadmap, it can seem really daunting. And I'd say, search for blogs, search for articles. There's people who are outlining like, this is what you need to do to get this done, whether you like want to have e-commerce or whether you want to, just take that experience to the next level. So yeah, don't be afraid to do that and then bring someone on board. It can really take things up a notch and it can smooth the process, and it kind of makes you then like the leader, the person who's got this done. I think that, putting things into action sometimes can seem like a daunting task, but it can really, be broken out and be really iterative and like broken into small chunks where you can see, action and results, and then keep on moving forward.
I think that's terrific. Well, Jenn, this has been a terrific conversation. I really appreciate you being on Business Ninjas today, kind of sharing your experience, your journey, certainly, what it's like to be in B2B marketing and, in a digital consulting firm. I think this was terrific, and I really appreciate you being on Business Ninjas today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Great to have you.